Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster here from the Wood TV live desk. Joining me this morning, George Bayard III. He is the director and curator over at the Grand Rapids African American Museum and Artifacts, downtown Grand Rapids. George, thanks for taking some time to chat with us here. We want to talk about a few exhibits here, some of them related to Black History Month. How are you this morning?
Pretty good, Luke. It's great getting here, and we love talking to Channel 8, so let's have at it.
So tell me a little bit here about the specifics of this month. What do we have downtown there for Black History Month?
Well, because we're an African American museum, we always start out by saying we celebrate Black history 365 days a year. That's what we do, and that's who we are. So when we get to February, it kind of crowds everything into one little month, but we are happy to use the month of February to get more exposure. People come down not knowing what to expect, but for us, we always have a bunch of special exhibits. We always have a lot of permanent exhibits, and like I said, part of what we do is to tell stories, and most of our exhibits surround stories and storytelling, and trying to get information out to the public about local Grand Rapids people.
And speaking of those stories, we have a few shots here that you were able to share with us of those specific exhibits, and we see here our first one that I'll be able to pull up full. What do we have here with this one, George?
Oh, that would be a book signing that we had the last weekend. Rohi Marshall is from Detroit, and she wrote a book based on oral histories of African Americans over 80 years old. She has it easily compiled 30 or 40 of them, and she's working on a second book. The lady she's talking to is Annette Redden, a local lady here in town who really literally brought people to tears with her stories when she started to reminisce going back in the days of Jim Crow and moving here to Michigan.
To have those opportunities to be able to display works like that, especially at your museum here in downtown Grand Rapids, how does that feel? Well,
it's great because we know that for every story that we tell, there's probably 10 that are lost. And for the people of Grand Rapids, it's a disappointment to not know all of the facts about certain people who had impact in the community here in Grand Rapids. We find something almost every day about an individual or a group or an event that happened here in Grand Rapids that we just kind of turn to each other and say, "Did you know that?" "No, I didn't know that." And that's how we judge our patrons coming through. They always leave saying, "You know, I left here smarter. I never really knew that." And for us, that's the purpose of being there, to create memories for people, but also to tell them the facts the way they were.
And we have a few more of these photos here to share. What about this one here?
That one is called In Every War. Usually around Veterans Day or Memorial Day, we have some type of memorabilia or photographs devoted to the military. And this is an exhibit that is we lent to the Grand Rapids Public Library. I believe it's on their first floor as you come in. And it talks about African Americans who fought in every war in this country, even though the country didn't love them, and had trouble returning from the wars, buying homes, and some things that the normal people got with a GI Bill, white soldiers got with a GI Bill, black soldiers didn't get. And so it tells a lot of those stories. One of the new things about this particular exhibit that we were able to find were some military patches, and they document all of the different divisions and all of the different groups when the Army was segregated. And when you start to read those stories of the Harlem Hellcats or the Tuskegee Airmen, it's really, really exciting and uplifting to see that these guys, persevered in all types of distress.
And then we also have here the last photo that you did share with us was the reflective view here. What do we have with this one?
Well, reflective view is a series of photographs by Noel Webley II, and Noel, people know him as Nino. A lot of folks out there know him, and he was a Grand Rapids press photographer. He was an art teacher. He was a musician. I wore many hats, and we were just extremely proud to be able to show some of his images for the month of February. This show is actually, we have decided to extend it. We've gotten so much response from it that some of his brothers in his fraternity are going to come and do a reception for him sometime. Don't have the date pinned down yet, maybe into March, but we're just great. He's a great sports photographer and great bassist. And as I said, he was a school teacher to many of the kids in Grand Rapids who are now artists themselves.
When determining what exhibits you want to put up, how do you pick, I guess I should ask? Like, which ones should we include more? Which ones should have less? Things along those lines.
Well, we always give priority to local stories, local groups. We get a lot of images and a lot of artifacts in from donations. So a lady came in yesterday with 3 what you would call racist bottle openers, and we took them and put them into our collection. We know that eventually, when we get more space, we'll be able to display more things from our collection. We've got a lot of our items in storage now, and we'd like to be able to get all that out. So we give priority to local. Secondly, we give priority to things that people may not know. There's always, we start with the oral histories. When you give the oral histories, a lot of times people will tell you, well, you ought to talk to this person, you ought to go see this cemetery or something like that. And so we'll do that. We'll go out, we'll do some research, and then get amazed. This is a story we need to tell. And even if it's not local Grand Rapids, I mean, we've done stories from people that are up in the UP. We've done stories from people down in Covert, Michigan. And so while we're not, we don't consider ourselves a statewide museum, certainly Lakeshore and Western Michigan are within our area of expertise. We go often to Idlewild, and we work diligently with the Jim Crow Museum up in Big Rapids. So we also are building a connection from all of the African American museums around the western side of the state.
And speaking of having some more space, expansion, what are we looking at maybe for the future? Anyone who's been to, the museum downtown knows that it's a rather smaller space, but what could be on the horizon there?
Well, all I can say at this point is that we're moving on up. We've been in a search for the 7 years that we've been in 87 Monroe Center, and we love downtown. We would stay there if we had enough space, but we have outgrown those 2,000 square feet that we have, and are really looking for something here in town to encompass not only all of our artifacts that we've collected over the years, but the programming that we do. We are a cultural center, we're a information headquarters, we're archives. So we are very close, I think, to finding that space, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks we have an announcement coming, and that may clear the way for some folks. We are, as I said, we are moving on up, and right now we're a smaller museum, so we're free and open to the public. We will be starting our capital campaign shortly with some fundraisers, some art auctions, and some giveaways. and we would love to be able to approach everybody here in town and be connected with our museum when we get the new space. We're looking at something that could be maybe 10 times the size of where we are now, but it's exciting, and it's something that the city deserves. I mean, we are Grand Rapids African American Museum, but the museum belongs to everybody. Our stories are told, just like the Native folks that are here, Indigenous people, just like the white folks that are here, Dutch folks, Jewish folks. We're all connected, and I think that if we can tell those stories through the African American lens, then we've done what we're set out to do.
George, we really appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to add here when it comes to having some exhibits up, whether they're specific to Black History Month or not?
Well, coming up real shortly, tomorrow, we are connected with the World of Winter, and you got to come down to our Do the Right Thing ice sculpture. Take a picture of yourself in your 1980s gear and take a selfie, put it on our website. We also are connecting with the Grand Rapids Art Museum with the photography exhibit. They have an exhibit there in dialogue, two African American photographers, and our show with Noah Webley is connected to that. We're doing something later on with the opera. We're doing Taste of Soul Sunday with the library. So we've got all these connected partners, and the easiest thing to do is to go on our Facebook page or go onto our website, www.grandma.org, and that information will pop out to you, and you can pick and choose what you want to do. We have a few more book signings lined up, and then in a couple weeks, we have an exhibit entitled The Hella Project, which is Hella is short for Henrietta Lacks. She's the woman whose cells were harvested and are still being used for research today. They used them for even some of the COVID research. And so we have a whole exhibit going up then too. So all that's in February, and then we roll into March.
George, again, we really appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a look at the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Lasser. George Bayard III, thanks again. Folks, there's a link attached to this stream. It'll take you over to woodtv.com. We're able to find our full conversation here once again if you want to watch it back. Have a great afternoon, folks. We'll see you around.